The first scripture reading from this morning comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verses 1 through 14. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. To tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month they are to take a lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbor in obtaining it. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who eat it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of this month. And then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb the same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roast it over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. You shall not let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn. But this is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human beings and animals. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be a day of remembrance for you, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. And throughout your generations you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance." And this ends the reading of the Old Testament. And now from the book of Romans, chapter 13, verses 8 through 14. "Owe no one anything, except to love one another. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. The commandments: you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word: love your neighbor as yourself. The love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. Besides this, you know what time it is, and how it is now the moment for you to wake from sleep, for salvation is nearer to us now than when we became believers. The night is far gone, the day is near. Let us then lay aside the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us live honorably as in the day, not in reveling and drunkenness, not in debauchery and licentiousness, not in quarreling and jealousy. Instead, put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So I feel that we, as Americans in particular, are kind of conditioned that we have this never-ending run of supplies, right? They'll just never run out. We go to a grocery store prior to preparing for hurricanes, buy some bread, some food, supplies, drinks, frozen pizzas, whatever, and the next day or the next week, those stocks will be replenished. And the same goes for gasoline. Usually we can pull up to a gas station with our car, fill up however many gallons we want without a worry or problem in the world, as long as we have the funds to pay for it. They just never run out. So we have these endless, seemingly endless supplies, and it kind of alters the way that we think and view things sometimes. And so when a hurricane does come through, it reminds us that, oh yeah, everything's not endless in this world. Sometimes things run out. Sometimes water dries up. Sometimes food's all purchased or spoken for. Sometimes gasoline is all taken, and then we're stuck in a position where we don't have gas, we don't have water, we don't have food. But as Americans, we're pretty accustomed to having those things just continually replenished and refilled. But you think about people in other countries that still have to hunt or grow their own crops or food to eat. And even the many kids or families that go to bed with an empty stomach at night. It's a sobering reminder that maybe not everything in this world is as limitless as we might want to believe. So when this stuff does kind of run out, we get this kind of widespread panic and a little anxious and nervous, as we saw with Hurricane Irma, right? So what would we do if, for some reason, farmers stopped growing crops, or a particular species of animal or plant suddenly died off? I know I have heart palpitations of thinking of cows going extinct. I'd lose my beloved cheeseburgers and steaks and burritos. What would I do with myself? I don't know. So stuff like that just kind of makes me nervous. What if we have these crops that don't ever run out? And to think about it, things on this planet really aren't eternal. Eventually something will go the way of the dodo. We'll have a crop that might become extinct, or a food product that goes by the wayside. But things just have limits. Even gasoline. Eventually there will be one day, maybe years and years down the road, we'll tap into all the crude oil that we have possibly gotten our hands on. It'll be dried up. And then what do? Where do we go, and what do we use to kind of have renewable sources and resources? And so, the truth be told, aside from that, there's no real one resource that we can be completely dependent on other than maybe carbon dioxide, which comes from us, that we just kind of make involuntarily and spend out into the universe. But there is one resource that I feel will never run out. One thing that we can always count on, we can always produce, we can always make more of, receive, and get. And that was a word that Paul mentioned strongly in his message today. And it's one that I've preached on quite a bit in the past few months, or just a big theme throughout many of my sermons. And that's love. Right? Love is dependent on us. It's a resource that comes from us, bounds from us and to us, and from other people and to other people. It's the one resource that we know that, aside from God, that will never run out, unless we just stop doing it altogether. And that would be a really scary day. I don't ever want to see that day. So, with this word love, we know it's hugely complex, right? There's so many facets to it, so many ways to understand it, describe it, show it, and give it. In fact, the Greeks in the New Testament, they have 3 different words to describe love. There's 3 completely different Greek words that are used for love. So, the first word of the Greek words, is the noun agape, which simply translates into a Christian love, which is sometimes rendered as charity. So this version of love is sort of like a Christianly, brotherly, or sisterly love for someone else, right? It's just kind of unconditional, always there, and you'll love someone even if you're not related to them. It's just something given in generosity or charity or helpfulness towards someone else. So that's the first Greek word for love, agape. And now they have their second word that they use for love, and is translated as love in the New Testament, is phileo. This is kind of a sexual form of love, and it can sometimes be simply translated as a kiss. So that's the second type of love, right? So just a sexual type or intimacy or whatever with phileo. So you have agape, a phileo, and then the third one, eros, or eros, which is a word that can be surmised as the love of things or items. So you have agape, phileo, and eros. So eros, of course, kind of gets its name from the Greek god eros, which is also known as the primordial god of sexual love and beauty. So kind of just a surface type of love, right? Like, I love this Bible. This is my love. It's an item. It's a thing. It's not really deep. It's just kind of a surface type. This is what I love. I'm caught up in the beauty of it, the niceness of it, or the stained glass windows, how great they look. That's kind of the eros type of Greek love. So you have agape, a phileo, and eros. 3 words that we just use love for, right? So you can see how complicated this whole love thing can get. How do we describe it? How do we share it? How do we express it? How do we feel it? And how do we continue to live a life that just shows love for one another? So, as Paul's kind of informing the Romans, life's much bigger and a little more complex than just simple resources or material goods, or even just amassing wealth. You see, our Christian lives have run much deeper than what's on the surface. We should get beyond just a beauty or a vain or an enjoyment type of love and go to the deeper, unconditional, agape, a never-ending, doing love, not expecting things in return. And so we have to wonder, what happens if we just put our faith or love into a material object? What if I just love this folder to death? This was my identity. This is my folder in life. So all it takes is one storm, one fire, one disease, one tragedy to take this thing away. And then where's my love go, right? If it's stored in something tangible or some item or material good, and that washes away or gets wiped away, then we really hurt. We have a separation. We have a loss. We grieve. We feel the pain of that item or that thing going away. So to get to the deeper understanding of love and having that connection takes a little bit of work, but it's the point that we have to get to where it won't affect us if we lose material things, if we lose items, if we have a lot of damage that happens in the storm. We have to remember that our life is still precious, and it might not be the end of the world if we had some damage to our house or ground or boat or car or what have you. And so, with this, we have to also understand that we are a consumeristic country, right? It's just the way things kind of are. So we're always kind of asking, what's in it for us? Or what's in it for me? Or why should I purchase this item or this good or this product? How's it going to benefit me? What am I going to get out of it? How will it make my life better? Now, sometimes people even go as far to ask the same thing of God. Why should I invest in God? Why does God matter? How's God going to help me? What's God going to do for me? If I give in enough, what am I going to get back? And so, instead of putting ourselves or material goods as the first in line, proclaiming they're the most important thing in life, God reminds us, and Paul reminds us, that it's vastly different. Material items and goods aren't the things that bring us the most joy and love in life. Paul so wittingly reminds us in Romans 13, verses 9 and 10, that the 10 Commandments, don't commit adultery, don't murder, don't steal, don't desire what others have, and any other commandment are all summed up into one word. You must love your neighbor as yourself. Well, okay, Paul, for the record, that's more than one word, but we get what Paul's saying, right? Love doesn't do any wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is what fulfills the law. Meaning, if you have love and obey love and follow love towards other people, you'll pretty much do every single law or rule that's listed out there for you if you're doing it properly. The notion is even further hammered home to us in various commentaries. For instance, in the preaching and teaching of the Old and New Testament, a lot of people say, well, the Old Testament's legalistic, just a bunch of laws, an angry God, vindictive God, and just a bunch of rules that people have to follow to get from point A to point B, or have that guide in their life. Then we get to the New Testament, that's where all the good news is, right? That's where all the love and fun and joy and stuff exists. But they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can go together hand in hand. And one seminary professor, David Bartlett, he's a professor of New Testament at Columbia, a theological seminary. And he kind of enlightens us to point out ways in which the Old Testament is connected to the New, through love, and through that commitment to one another. And so here's what he had to say about Paul's verbiage and writings in this letter to the Romans. He said, here are three ways in which the law provides good news in this passage from Romans 13. He said, first, these verses, like all the material in Romans chapters 12 through 14, spell out the significance of the good news that Paul declares in Romans 1 through 11. And so chapters 1 through 11 in Romans, Paul's talking about a bunch of good news and good stuff that can happen. And in 12 to 14, in the chapter we read today, it kind of highlights that and emphasizes the significance of those chapters he wrote prior. And so the good news is that we all sin and fall short of God's glory. But we are all saved by grace, found in Romans chapter 3. The good news is that our faith will be reckoned to us as righteousness, just as Abraham's was, as Paul wrote in Romans 4. The good news is that in Christ, humankind takes on a new identity and a new hope. Adam's story is reversed to the glory of God. And so we say Adam taking the apple or fruit or whatever kind of fruit, pomegranate, whatever you want to say it is, and having us fall into sin. Christ restores that and brings us back to redemption. And so where we had once fallen, Christ has now made us whole and given us the opportunity for redemption and healing and salvation and grace. So Christ reverses what Adam kind of did to the world. So the good news is that rightly understood, the law can be an invitation to daily faithfulness. So David Bartlett is saying that this law, the Ten Commandments, can help us remain faithful and guide us in that sense. Just kind of build us to get to this point of just eternal, unconditional love. So because of what God has done and is doing and will do for us in Jesus Christ, we live with the possibility of genuine transformation. That we can change and become this entity or this being or this person of this radiant love. So second, in ways that we might not have imagined, Romans 13, 8 through 14, it shifts the burden of the law into a yoke that, if not exactly easy, is at least manageable. See, almost within range. See, one reason the law could be a burden in the first century as well as the 21st century is that law can easily multiply into laws, right? Almost endlessly. See, on the days when we are even slightly scrupulous, we can spend all day counting the ways our behavior might go wrong. And so in secular law, something as relatively short as the U.S. Constitution, it gets interpreted and reinterpreted with reams of laws and reams of decisions on the meaning of the law. So no offense to lawyers, but law can get very complicated, right? It can be complicated so much. And what you have, what is seemingly short in the Constitution, has so many amendments and derivatives that you keep going down the line. You have this huge, complex thing that you have to follow or remember. If we took a checklist of all those laws and built it up or added it up and felt we had to follow those every single day, it would seem overwhelming, insurmountable, right? Look at this checklist of laws we have to abide by. What is this? What's going on? Why is it so complex that way? But David Bartlett says Paul reverses that whole process. So instead of having the Constitution with a few laws that spread out to this umbrella of things that cover every single base to prevent lawsuits and understanding and all that crazy stuff, Paul's essentially reversed the multiplicity into unity. He's taken all that stuff, wrapped it into one little nice, easy bag for us to deal with and understand. So Paul is saying that the law is condensed from all those permutations into one thing, that love that we know and we say. So Paul's saying it is pretty simple. He's saying, see that neighbor? Love that person as you love yourself. Act out to the other the best intentions you would wish for yourself. Just like the golden rule. Instead of feeling overwhelmed and inundated with the commandments of the Ten Commandments or the many various Levitical laws, Paul is stating it can be boiled down to something as simple as loving your neighbor. And that should cover all bases. See, it really is that simple. It's as simple as following a calendar. You see, we know that Ash Wednesday follows Fat Tuesday, right? That's a given. But it gets a little complicated when we add all these other different things and have these laws that spread out to so many different ways. We make it so hard for ourselves. But all we need to do is love. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And why are we worthy enough of receiving this love and this grace from God? Well, it's because we're all God's children. That God loves each and every one of us just as much as the next. Some of us may be better at something than someone else, but that doesn't mean God's love for us is greater than someone else. You see, sometimes some people ironically associate God with being a little carnal. Like if God loves you more, you'll get more money in life. If God loves you more, if you're sick and your colleague has the same illness or disease, if you love God enough, then you'll get healed, whereas someone might not. But that's not how it works. The reality is we live in a world in which that sin and that garbage just kind of exists. And our love for God and God's love for us sadly doesn't make us immune to all of that. But it's still what we're called to do. We're called to be that loving, hospitable Christian that invites others and takes care of others unconditionally with that agape type of love. And so, by doing that, we can do it in such simple ways that this love just goes through our whole being and takes over our life. If we have a neighbor that had a lot of debris or damage from the storm, we can go next door and just start helping them clean it up without them even asking. We can take guests or visitors to church here on Sunday out to lunch or something instead of just telling them our name. If we see someone mistreating someone else, we can speak up and call them out and try to be that person that steps in and offers protection or justice or guidance or help to those that cannot help themselves. And so through worship and prayer and loving our neighbors, we in fact show God that we love God equally. See, I can guarantee you that God knows and feels our love that we express to one another. Every time we show love to someone else, God feels love. So we have to think of the ways that we offer and give out this love. And we have to be open to receiving it too. It doesn't do any good to shut it all off. And we have to understand that people express love in different ways. Some people do it through acts of kindness, others do it through words, others do it through physical touch, others do it through gifts. There are so many different ways to offer and give love, and there's no one specific way that works. So, if we have to think about this love, I know it can get complex, like the laws. It can get a little convoluted with love, but just think of love. But think of ways that I can be, or you can be more, we can be more loving during the day. As I said, the Greeks had 3 different words to describe love. It's not easy. It's not as simple as going home and turning on your love button or dial for the day and saying, okay, here we go, it's going to be a nice, easy day. Everything's going to go swimmingly and it'll be perfect and I'll be fine. So there are so many different ways to express and give love to neighbors and neighbor alike. So with this in mind, when it comes down to it, we must be mindful about our surroundings, about who we are, and those that might be suffering around us. Our endless supply of love is something that we should use frequently and exceedingly. It is that one supply that will never run out. So when we go to the store and we see empty shelves of water or bread and get into a panic, just remember that we have love. And maybe there's someone that you can help, prepare, or give something to, or share. And think instead of, oh, woe is me, think of, oh, what can I do, or how can I help? How can I be a blessing to someone else on this day? That should be our goal when we wake up every single day. We should not look for our own gain in sharing love. For love is not self-fulfilling. Love does not envy. We should not boast, and we should not look down upon others. Love is never-ending, but it's dependent upon us. But we have to be the ones responsible in sharing that and giving it out. So I encourage you to wake up each day, say a prayer to God, say, God, thank you for this day, and help me be that beacon of love and hope and never-ending love that we can share with someone else today. Amen.